I'm going to introduce Chad Becker with Tractor Solar.
Hey.
So grateful for the introduction to Chad from Mark. And again, I should send this in the top. Thank you, Bizstream, for hosting this.
Woo! Well, now you're taking my lines. No, I'm just kidding.
I always leave a portion of my speech out. I think I have it memorized. So I will hand it over to Chad from here. Chad?
Indeed. Thanks you all for coming. Thanks for letting me feed you so I could talk to you about solar for a little bit. I love a captive audience, I guess. Let's see how this goes. But before I get to the next slide, basically, I don't know what your experience with solar. Actually, before I get to anything, my name is Chad with Tiger Solar. I was working for Tiger Solar in Boise, Idaho with the design team 7 years ago. And when I had a little kid, I managed to bring solar back to Michigan with me, brought Tiger Solar back to Michigan with me. And just want to give a background of my story and luckily, a little bit less than 5 years ago, I got the approval to really start this branch, and that's what you're going to see in some of the story here. But first, I would rather talk about what almost everyone, since the first moment I had to prove that I could break this branch in Michigan, and what some of you might have come in here thinking is, does solar really work in Michigan? And yeah, solar works in Michigan. I've had to prove that to my delivery driver just like a week ago. I've had to defend that since the day one of getting this branch off the ground. And there really is proof in the pudding, where I brought receipts, where this is something called PV watts, where it just shows the solar radiance of a certain geographical location. It's a government-ran tool from NREL. And basically, I was working in Boise, Idaho, where you see 1 kilowatt of solar was producing 1,459 kilowatt hours a year there, and 1 kilowatt of solar was producing 1,193 kilowatts when I ran that same number in Grand Rapids. And I was just like, that's only 25% less. Because I was living in Grand Rapids before I moved there, and I recognized that we had a kilowatt hour price point in Michigan of like the 12th most expensive in the States. I knew I was paying, when I moved to Boise in Grand Rapids, I was paying like 13, 14 cents residential back then. And in Boise, Idaho is all the way up here, even though there was solar everywhere out there, I was paying like about half the cost. So if it's only 25% less solar radiance, yet I'm paying half for the electricity, man, all these numbers totally add up. And that's right at the core of where we got to prove that this could happen. So that's starting to explain how I got here and why we're all here. And that's mostly because Mark of Bizstream, I was lucky enough that he understood what I was bringing to the table. And he was interested in going solar back in 2019. Half that credit does go to his mom, who luckily went solar first, and then luckily he listens to his mom. And then in 2020, of course he started thinking about, oh my gosh, I like this. Can I do this for my business? So we started talking about it. And in 2021, we do build it. And these are just some of the pictures showing that off, the process. It's the rails underneath, our team up there. And the moment Mark turns on the system, I didn't even make him change out of his workout clothes because there's no bells, no whistles. It really just, you flip a handle, you go, okay, I guess my next electric bill is going to be lower now. And other than 20 minutes later, he can go inside though and look at his solar monitor. This is per panel. You're seeing that layout matches what you're seeing in this photo here. That is a per panel readout of what his solar was producing that morning. This is just a particular day I took it. So if one of the panels was down, you'd know about it, but all these items come 25 years warranted, even on the manufacturer level at this point. Oh yeah, I'll let this play for a second while I just mentally prepare you for, now I'm gonna become the salesman. So this is just a fun drone shot I took over just showing off his system last week. But the next slide is the one that has a number on it that makes me look like I'm saying something that's too good to be true. But that's why I'm here talking to you guys in basically a rural district as far as the USDA is concerned. Because for commercial entities, right now, you're getting reimbursed 80% of the cost of the cost of going solar in your first year. From whatever money you have to put down to build your system, 1 year later, you have that money coming right back to you. Mark can attest to this, and extra slides that are about to attest to how this works. The first and foremost, you build those building blocks off of the federal tax credit. That's the item you've probably already all heard of. That's the one that even as a residential solar qualifier, you'd be able to get. Even nonprofits can get it because of the Inflation Reduction Act that just passed through. So on top of that, if you're a commercial entity, you're then going to also be able to do a depreciation. Just like any other large item you'd buy for your business, you're going to be able to take the depreciation. You don't even have to spread it out over 10 years. You don't have to wait to get it back. Solar qualifies for accelerated depreciation. So it's just a matter of if your business has the tax appetite for it, you can take it all back in year one. And then the final big one, this is the one that just got updated and changed and made that last number so big, is a 50% Rural Energy for America program. I'm going to just call that REAP from now on, and it's a REAP grant. Mark and Bizstream were able to qualify for that by the skin of their teeth because it's geographically based. By the skin of their teeth, Grand Valley almost made it so they couldn't get it. But we were able to get a slight variance to allow them to get this grant. And it was only 25% when he got it. And here we are 2 years later, sorry to tell you, it's now double that. It's gone up to 50%. And this is just showing off the website where I'm just going to throw this is extra intel. I'm not going to read all this. I'm just saying you can go to this main rural development USDA website and read all the extra nitty gritty, but this is just a bunch of numbers showing how much bigger all these grants have just gotten, how much bigger these pools of money have just become. And the USDA in Michigan, our main contact, and Rick Vanderbeek, who runs it, was already confident in how flush these funds were before this came through. So basically, we're already 9 for 9 in getting these grants for people through just the Michigan branch of Tiger Solar in the last 5 years. So, and then just to go back to the geographical element of it. Back when Mark did this address, he was just barely on the cusp of where it wasn't allowed, wasn't eligible, but this is just updated with 2020 census data. Grand Valley no longer knocks Allendale into it even close. So all of Allendale is easily agreeable at this point. This is right off the USDA site. So with the passing of the Inflation Reduction Act, this is just repeating the same thing I just said, but the 80% number turns into an IRR of 30%. I know that didn't mean anything to me a few years ago, and it might not mean anything to all of you, but it would mean something to your CPA or your accountant. And just to give you a context, even when I offer residential quotes of just the 30% tax credit and it pays itself back in 10, 11 years, it's an IRR of 5%. That's kind of on level with like really safe mutual funds and items like that, where 30% is just an outrageous number. Like, let me show you the proof in the pudding of that. This is a best case scenario. This is one that's an hour north of Grand Rapids. We just threw the numbers together for, because economies of scale are huge in solar. The bigger the better does just help with less labor. We know this would be an easy install. This would be an easy interconnection. They are actually able to literally go from a $460,000 cash flow negative to back in the positive in 1 year. Somehow we got a 0.9. That one, I literally sent it back to my accounting team, be like, this one, I've never seen one this good, are you sure? And yeah, like when it came down to it, it was that easy of an install. We knew we'd be able to do that, where they would have been whole again after 1 year. But just to give the flip side of the coin, here's one that we're installing in a couple weeks. Out in Middleville, this is Middleville Storage. This is just a little 7-panel system. So he had to throw a $10,000 investment because it's smaller, so that it is more money per panel. But he's still going to have 80% of that money back in 1 year. He's going to have more than $8,000 back, and then 4 years later, he really is just eliminating 75% of his electric bill for decades beyond that. I'm just throwing a lot of numbers at you way too fast. But I guess I just wanted to prove that, like, if you were to, if it sounds too good to be true, I just want you to be able to know that you could talk to any other commercial solar company in the region and they could show you the same thing. Like, really, but truly, find another construction team. There's 2 different types of solar companies out there, in my opinion. And I know that even Angie mentioned that she had experiences with the door knockers. Those are sales first teams, where those are the people that want to make you trapped in your own home for 15 minutes or for more than an hour, and won't even let you, like, don't let you leave until they want you to sign the bottom line that day. And you don't have to deal with those kind of people that go solar or talk about it. There's a lot of reputable solar companies right here in West Michigan, other than me. I'd love it if you talked to me, but what?
That actually happened. We were same day.
Oh, really? Oh yeah, that happened to you exactly like that?
My husband pretty much scheduled a meeting the same day at the door knocker.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's their goal. But so even if what I'm saying today, sounds crazy, like, please feel free to look into it more with another reputable company and get a couple quotes. That just proves you're serious, and I love it. But just to say, we are not another construction company. Let me prove who Tiger Solar is, though. Like I said, we were founded about 20 years ago in Charlottesville. I was working with the design team. I still talk to Brian and Casey weekly. They're our head designers. And with Casey even being on the board of code creation for the state, where he's in, but he's not in Michigan is all. But just proving that he is the solar advocate to its core, as the core of our team. And then obviously, though, we know all about dealing with consumers' energy and our own local expertise being built in the last 5 years as we went around and built all sorts of items. Oh yeah, just say, I'm also from a Jenison Public Schools grad, just to give an idea. I'm right back in my hometown is where I pulled this company. Grandson of farmers in Coloma, and then I don't know if you guys ever remember that junkyard at the corner of 96 and Riley in Zeeland, but that's my cousins and uncles. So if any AL officer ever beat me in a demolition derby, that was my family. Okay, but then just showing off what we've been up to before and after. Mark gave us some chances as well. We did the Wyoming WKTV. They put together this little time. This was their idea to throw this together. This is on their YouTube page, just to do a little time lapse of us slapping the panels up there. And that's Kyle and Vicente there, who I'm just going to keep pointing out. Been building this with me the whole time. Kyle and Vicente there. Been with me since pretty much the beginning here in Michigan. There's me and Vicente up on this roof that I promised I would never sell anything like this again. It's more aggressive than 45 degrees. It's just as scary as it looks. And it definitely, I had to be on that roof with them to prove, to say I'm sorry, I guess. We did that a little bit over a year ago. M Industries is our largest install over in Ada, where we tapped out what's allowable under consumer's energy under a Category 2 system. Because if you go any larger than what this one was, they start to kind of deal with you like your utility. And that becomes a whole different hassle, and you just get a pittance for if you ever sell back to the grid. I think that's roughly 400 panels, just to give at least some level of context. Then Allendale Shipyard is an example of one of my first people that went REAP, the Renewable Energy Program grant. He just won it for his third time though, and we're putting more panels on 2 more of his buildings in a couple months. Actually, just a month away right now. It's a point system where they're going to have to prove how much your solar offsets, like on a green scale, mixed with other variables of your company. But solar is so much higher than all these other elements that can apply for the same grant that you're just a shoe-in when you go solar and what it actually produces in savings for both green and money. So that was a really fun time. We're looking forward to getting back out there. And we're wrapping this one up over in Rockford right now. I don't know if any of you recognize Camp Roger, but also Bizstream's been awesome enough to volunteer. If you've ever seen their awesome way that they display their energy creation through their solar, they're willing to share that technology they've developed with Camp Roger, and they're going to have the same thing in their building. So that's really awesome. So we've been up to all this with my guys. Like I said, Kyle's my construction manager. Vicente's been joining me in the office, kind of taking on the same kind of role I've had to grow into at this point. And Max becoming our lead installer below us at this point. And we've got a team of 7 guys in Michigan that's just our core of our team, as we've spattered this much in the last 5 years. Those are literally where all of our installs are, with a few in Ann Arbor and stuff missing. And on top of that, I'm just going to embarrass them for a second. And there's Jerry down here in the front you saw me talking to the whole time. He's been a master electrician with us since the very beginning. And we're over there off the coast of Allendale at an event a year ago at the Farmhouse Cider. So.
Yeah. Thanks, Jerry. That's just Kool-Aid.
It was either this or the one where you put the weird army hat over your head, so I went with this one. It was in the rubble in that place. All right. All right, so quick recap. Basically, this is just the nuts and bolts of what I really should have been talking about the whole time monetarily, of what it does for your business. Obviously, it's going to just be a bottom line advantage for years to come, and it really just becomes the tax-free savings. You're not having to pay Uncle Sam every time you're getting this investment back, and you're getting it back the entire time. Anything else you might invest in that's a safe investment, you have to wait for it to mature and decide when to pull it out. This one, once you get over those first few hump years you might see as a barrier of getting your money back in the first 3 or 4 years, it's really just maturing every month. Every month you're just getting that payout indefinitely. And these are really warranty for 25 years. There's no moving parts in the panels. At worst, the item you replace is an inverter, which is at less than a $5,000 item that you might replace 15 years down the line. And that's a worst case scenario. But anyways, if anyone has any questions they'd like to ask now, I'm obviously able to ramble in any which direction. So let me know.
Maybe you spoke to this a little bit, but if I lease my space, what is your relationship, or how do you talk to me about how that process would work if I'm interested in it as a business owner leasing space?
Gotcha. Yeah, that was a good question. Someone started to ask me out in the hallway earlier. And it's kind of a deal killer. It's not technically a deal killer. It comes down to what's your relationship with your building owner. And that comes down, if someone comes through with that kind of conversation, I would put the onus back on them. You'd have to tell me what your relationship with the owner is. How likely do you think he would agree to this kind of term? Can you get a 15, 20-year lease that you're actually locked into? But short of that, yeah, I don't know. That's kind of a deal. It might be a deal killer in a way. So this probably was a presentation that was closer to being for people that truly own their buildings. So thanks for listening regardless. And a lot of this is applicable to residential, and if a lot of you have homes. But
there's a wide array.
Cool.
And
Awesome.
Also,
what was that?
facilitate the conversation between you and the business.
Yeah. No, I'm always willing to help. Yeah.
The owner of the building.
Yep. It's not that different than having to talk to HOAs as well. So I've done my share of talking to building owners and HOAs over the years with varying degrees of success. But yeah, obviously if you own your own building, it's a better way to go. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Sweet. Then yep, I even started that. As long as that's still recording, I'll even share I'll share the actual audio version too. But yeah, definitely. And is it that easy to get a list of everyone that was at the event today, Angie? Or I can just spam it out? Sweet. Awesome.
Is all this covered by your property insurance? And if so, how much would it increase premiums you see? And then
Good question.
replace your roof?
Yep. Good questions.
Out of pocket to take them off, do the roof
trying to see. Okay, so it looks like we did. Ooh, I almost walked off your stage. Looks like we do try and factor in a little bit of annual insurance, but that's a moving target. So it will affect. Arguably it is a capital or something you're adding to the value of your business. So it will be tallied onto your insurance. There is a way to get a variance for that, as was passed in a law, but I've had people try and play that game, and I'm realizing, ooh, that was a law that was passed for utility scale. So that's why we still try and factor it in on a Michigan level. But the roof question is the better one, or it's like a broader one, where with a very exact answer of, if you think you're going to replace your roof in the next 5 years, definitely don't do solar now. Like, you want to get that new roof on and then put it on, because the act of tearing the solar off and putting it back, is its own extra bill that you have to pay for, depending on the scale and how. Like, if we had to take all those panels off that church and then put them back, that'd be a very different price point than taking them off of your roof and putting them back, even though they're kind of the same size. So that just comes down to a moving target. But that's where, if you can get a roof that you know is going to last at least the next 20, 25 years, that's ideal. Or a metal roof that lasts way longer, that's also ideal. Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
Are your solar panels charged into a battery? So because winter, obviously, sun's lower.
Yep. So yeah, they can, but generally, battery. I think I was talking to one of your employees earlier, Mark. Batteries are still so expensive that unless you're really doing it, unless you know exactly why you really want one, it's still not something I advocate for adding to a system, especially in Michigan. So I just realized I didn't really dwell on that long enough. Where I had a funny little slide. Wait, I know where I'm going. Let me, hold on. I'm clicking through everything you already saw, don't worry. But here, this is what, I didn't dwell on this long enough. So on your note of battery, in essence, you're kind of saying, hey, when you're generating more than you're actually using, where's that energy going? And that is kind of what this simple graphic's trying to display, where we stay grid tied. Like, even people that get batteries, we're yet to do a truly off-grid system, because trying to maintain, unless you actually really dwindle your energy use to something pretty small, trying to maintain your normal life desires off of with no grid connected, becomes a scary feat to make sure you're taking care of all the peak load moments and all that. So really, the name of the game is, when you're generating in the middle of the summer, in the middle of the day, you're generating way more than enough electricity that you might be even looking to use in-house at that moment, and the extra spillover does get sent back to the grid for a temporary credit. That credit varies depending on if you're residential and commercial, but I have the next 6 slides that go into detail about how the commercial one works. Should I dig in that direction? Okay, I had it ready in case I figured this would be something that comes up. Cool. So then, the name of the game is called distributed generation. If you were to Google it, that's just the fancy term for the credit system. Almost all the utilities have moved on to that at this point. The old version of this was net metering, if you'd heard of net metering prior to this, but the new one is called distributed generation, because it's just a way of saying, hey, the credit we're going to give you isn't going to quite equal what you pay when you have to get it. That's why it's great when you use the energy the moment you generate it. And this will showcase that a little bit. So you guys recognize these are the funny numbers from your electric bill. This person was using 5,349 kilowatt hours a month that month, and they're getting charged all these rates at that metric. So when you add all those up, that gets you to about 16.5 cents. So that's another way of saying that is, if you went solar and you generate electricity and you use it in-house without it ever reaching the grid, it saves you from ever purchasing that same 16.5 cents. It's saving you the full amount. When you do have excess in the middle of the day and you're storing for credits to be used in the winter or at nighttime, that's when it turns into a distributed generation chart, where this is about 10 cents per kilowatt hour if you're on one of these 2 rate plans. These are the most common commercial rate plans. If you're a giant factory and you're on demand charges, that becomes a whole different ballgame. So maybe, if you talk to me separately if that's the case with you. And then, so between those 2 metrics, we're either 16.5 or 10. That's how much you're saving per kilowatt hour generated. If you got a proposal from me, it can fluctuate a little bit, but I'll usually be somewhere right smack dab in the middle, because that's usually about the average, but it depends on your business model. But if you have a lot of your employees only here during the daytime, that helps make sure that most of that's hopefully at least half of that's being used in-house without being sent back to the grid, and the other half is getting the 10-cent credit that will be used other times. Yeah, but that's the spiel on the credits. That doesn't totally answer the battery part, though. Battery is more of a residential thought at this point. Yeah, because it's just so expensive.
That's one of the questions I get all the time is like, oh, cool, you got solar, so if you lose power, you're still up and running. You can't completely.
And that's the biggest fail I can have as like a solar educator, is kind of like how I like to think of myself, because I never wanted to be a salesman. Is if someone were to get their solar installed or during install and then still think that, I have failed. Like that, and that's the kind of stuff that the door knocker type teams end up making people feel upset because they get all sorts of false promises and not educated enough on how all this works when they want them to sign on the bottom line that day. So yeah, just if you can verify this by talking to other good teams in the West Michigan area as well, they're out there.
Are they heated for like snow and stuff? Everyone's
yeah.
building flat. Right?
Yeah, so no. Short answer, no. Because the more anyone does the math, there's always like products out there that want to be this. That's another one of those, come on, someone's got to figure this out. And there's nothing beyond like a passive heating strip that someone is supposedly bringing to market right now that might help on that front. There's nothing that really makes dollars and cents out of that yet, as far as how much you'd have to heat, or maybe you'd void the warranty of warming the panels so unevenly. Like there's been enough barriers where that product doesn't really exist yet. But of course, it's something everyone thinks about and wants to exist. So, yeah. Oh yeah, thanks. Obviously, I'll be hanging around if anyone wants to talk to me. Is all I was going to say.
So those questions that come up, Chad will probably be here about until 1:30.
Yeah, I'll hang.
But thank you so much for being here. Again, thank you Bizstream for hosting. We've got else guys to have us. So, thanks for being here.
Sweet, thanks.